Good morning, Year 6, and welcome to another Tuesday morning reading skills with me, Mr. Long. So you may remember last week we looked at the introduction to this book, The Tales of Beedle the Bard by J.K. Rowling. Well, as promised, this week I am going to read one of those tales, and I'm going to read the first one in the book. It's called The Wizard and the Hopping Pot. I'll read through. If you don't want to hear my voice, then feel free to pause each time it gets to a new page, and then we've got questions at the end. So here we go. There was once a kindly old wizard who used his magic generously and wisely for the benefit of his neighbours. Rather than reveal the true source of his power, he pretended that his potions, charms and antidotes sprang ready-made from a little cauldron he called his lucky cooking pot. From miles around, people came to him with their troubles, and the wizard was pleased to give his pot a stir and put things right. This well-beloved wizard lived to a goodly age, and then died, leaving all his chattels to his only son. His son was of a very different disposition to his gentle father. Those who could not work magic were, to the son's mind, worthless, and he had often quarrelled with his father and with his father's habit of dispensing magical aid to their neighbours. Upon the father's death, the son found, hidden inside the old cooking pot, a small package bearing his name. He opened it, hoping for gold, but found instead a soft, thick slipper, much too small to wear, with no pair. A fragment of parchment within the slipper bore the words, "In the fond hope, my son, that you will never need it." The son cursed his father's age-softened mind, then threw the slipper back into the cauldron, resolving never to use it henceforth. Resolving to use it henceforth as a rubbish pail. That very night, a peasant woman knocked on the front door. "My granddaughter is afflicted by a crop of warts, sir," she told him. "Your father used to mix a special poultice in that old cooking pot." "Be gone," cried the son. "What care I for your brat's warts?" He slammed the door in the old woman's face. At once there came a loud clanging and banging from his kitchen. The wizard lit his wand and opened the door, and there, to his amazement, he saw his father's old cooking pot. It had sprouted a single foot of brass and was hopping on the spot, in the middle of the floor, making a fearful noise upon the flagstones. The wizard approached. I think I should have shown this picture afterwards. There's the pot with a foot, look. The wizard approached it in wonder, but fell back hurriedly when he saw that the whole of the pot's surface was covered in warts. "Disgusting object!" he cried, and he tried firstly to vanish the pot, then to clean it by magic, and finally to force it out of the house. None of his spells worked, however, and he was unable to prevent the pot hopping after him out of the kitchen and then follow him up to bed, clanging and banging loudly on every wooden stair. The wizard could not sleep all night for the banging of the warty old pot by his bedside, and next morning the pot insisted on hopping after him to the breakfast table. Clang, clang, clang went the brass-footed pot, and the wizard had not even started his porridge when there came another knock at the door. An old man stood on the doorstep. "'Tis my donkey, sir," he explained. "Lost she is, or stolen. Without her I cannot take my wares to market, and the family will go hungry tonight." "Well, I am hungry now," roared the wizard, and he slammed the door upon the old man. Clang, clang, clang went the cooking pot's single brass foot on the floor, but now its clamour was mixed with the brays of a donkey and human groans of hunger. "Oh, and oh!" echoing from the depths of the pot. "Be still! Be silent!" shrieked the wizard, but not all his magical powers could quieten the warty pot, which hopped on his heels all day, braying and groaning and clanging, no matter where he went or what he did. That evening there came a third knock upon the door, and there on the threshold stood a young woman sobbing as though her heart would break. "My baby is grievously ill," she said. Won't you please help us? Your father bade me come if troubled." But the wizard slammed the door on her, and now the tormenting pot filled to the brim with salt water and slopped tears all over the floor as it hopped and brayed and groaned and sprouted more warts. Though no more villagers came to seek help at the wizard's cottage for the rest of the week, the pot kept him informed of their many ills. Within a few days, it was not only braying and growing and slopping and hopping and sprouting warts, it was also choking and retching, crying like a baby, whining like a dog, and spewing out bad cheese and sour milk and a plague of hungry slugs. The wizard could not sleep or eat with the pot beside him, but the pot refused to leave, and he could not silence it or force it to be still. At last the wizard could bear it no more. "Bring me all your problems, all your troubles, all your woes," he screamed, fleeing into the night. With the pot hopping behind him along the road into the village, "Come, let me cure you, mend you and comfort you. I have my father's cooking pot, I shall make you well." And with the foul pot still bounding along behind him, he ran up the street casting spells in every direction. Inside one house, the little girl's warts vanished as she slept. The lost donkey was summoned from a distant briar patch and set down softly in its stable. The sick baby was doused in dittany and woke, well and rosy. At every house of sickness and sorrow, the wizard did his best, and gradually the cooking pot beside him stopped groaning and retching and became quiet, shiny and clean. "Well, Pot?" asked the trembling wizard as the sun began to rise. The pot burped out a single slipper he had thrown into it, and permitted him to fit it onto the brass foot. Together they set off back to the wizard's house, the pot's footstep muffled at last. But from that day forward, the wizard helped the villagers, like his father before him, lest the pot cast off its slipper and begin to hop once more. That's the end of the tale of the wizard and the hopping pot. And now I've got some questions for you. Pause as you answer these questions, and I'll give the answers at the end. Question 1 on this page. Retrieval. What does the wizard call his little cauldron? Question 2. Vocabulary. Find and copy a hyphenated word that means very popular. Question 3. Inference. How does the son feel about the package he has been left? Question 4. Vocabulary. Find and copy a word that means suffering. Question 5. Retrieval. Name the 3 things that the son tried to do to stop the pot from annoying him. Question 6. Explain. Why do you think the author has written the word clang 3 times? Question 7. Vocabulary. Find and copy a word that means goods to sell. So things someone sell, or goods to sell. Question 8. Inference. Why do you think the pot was also choking, retching, crying, whining, spewing out bad cheese and hungry slugs? Why was it doing that? Question 9. Vocabulary. Find and copy a word that means an ointment made from plants. An ointment. It's like a potion made from plants. And finally, question 10. Inference. This tale was written by Beadle the Bard for young wizards and witches. What do you think the moral of the story is? Think about who it's written for. What's the moral of the story? Okay, pause there and answer your 10 questions, and I'll go back now and help you answer them. I'll get my red pen, and off we go. What does the wizard call his little cauldron? So I'm going to skim and scam until I find little cauldron. Skimming and scamming. I'll be using my finger if I wasn't on the computer. Here we go. Little cauldron. He called it his lucky cooking pot. His lucky cooking pot. Now, vocabulary. Find and copy a hyphenated word that means very popular. Well, I've got a hyphenated word here, look, ready-made. Shall we see if that would fit? He pretended that his potions, charms and antidotes sprang very popular from his little cauldron. No, I'm not sure that's right. Let's carry on trying to find another hyphenated word. This well-beloved wizard lived a goodly age. Let's try switching well-beloved with very popular. This very popular wizard lived to a goodly age. Yes, I think that hyphenated word must mean very popular. Next question, question 3. How does the son feel about the package he's been given? Well, when a question like this happens, remember the first thing we have to come up with is an emotion, a feeling. Okay, so what does he think is in the pot? He thinks he's hoping for it being gold. Okay, and when he finds out that it's not, he says the son cursed his father and cursed his father's age-softened mind, meaning that his father was old and silly. And he threw the slippers back into the cauldron. So you could have lots of descriptions of how he felt. I'd say he felt disappointed because he hoped it was gold. He felt angry because all his father had left him was one slipper and he thought his father must have gone a bit daft. Any of those sort of things. Angry, disappointed, cross. So you need to start with an emotion and then explain why he had that emotion to get 1 point. Next question, question 4. Vocabulary. Find and copy a word that means suffering. Well, once again, my tip would be to look for a word you're not very sure of and then see if it would fit. So, means suffering. Maybe you don't know what dispensing means. So, he quarrelled with his father's habit of suffering magical aid to their neighbours. No, that doesn't make sense. Let's keep going through. Going to skim and scam. I know all of these words. I understand what cursed means. I understand resolving to use it henceforth as a rubbish pail. Suffering to use it. No, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to keep going. It says here, my granddaughter is afflicted by a crop of warts. Afflicted. Let's try that. My granddaughter is suffering by a crop of warts. Yes, suffering means the same as afflicted. Next question. Retrieval. Name 3 things that the son tried to do to stop the pot from annoying him. He said he tried firstly to banish the pot, to make it vanish. Then he tried to clean it by magic. Sorry, I'm going over the words. And finally, he tried to force it out of the house. So, to vanish the pot, to clean the pot, to throw it out of the house. Any way you worded that would be fine. Question 6. Explain. Why do you think the author has written the word clang 3 times? Okay. Clang, clang, clang went the brass-footed pot. Now, some people might say he's used the power of 3, but I want to know why. What happens? What's the effect? So don't just write he's written it for effect either. I want to know what's the effect. Clang, clang, clang. I think by writing it 3 times, he shows how annoying and repetitive it is, that this thing is going to keep going and going and going. So he's done it 3 times because the noise is going to keep repeating, not just 3 times, but over and over again. So that's the effect he wants to achieve. If you say it out loud, it becomes quite annoying just to say it. Clang, clang, clang. And I think that's what the author wants us to experience. Question 7, vocabulary. Find and copy a word that means goods to sell. Goods to sell, so things that someone's going to sell. Once again, use my tip. Find words you're not very sure of. If I start at the top again, hurriedly, disgusting, we understand all of those words, understand these words, scrolling all the way down. I know what porridge is. Lost or stolen, and without her, I cannot take my wares to the market. Oh, wares. I wonder what that means, wares. I cannot take my goods to sell to the market. Yes, that works. I think wares must mean goods that you can sell. Next question. Question 8. Inference. Why do you think the pot was also choking, retching, crying, whining, spewing out bad cheese and hungry slugs? Well, when we read here, it says, though no more villagers came to seek help at the wizard's cottage, so the word must have got around that it's not worth going to visit the wizard because he's not going to give you anything. The pot kept him informed of their many ills. So the reason the pot is retching and choking and crying like a baby and whining like a dog and spewing out bad cheese and sour milk and a plague of hungry slugs, it must be because the pot is trying to tell the wizard all the things that are happening to the villagers. So it's a way of the pot telling the wizard that all these things are happening to other villagers, even though they're not coming to the door. Next question. Question 9. Vocabulary. Find and copy a word that means an ointment or a potion made from plants. Guess what I want you to do? Find a word that you might not be familiar with. I didn't know what this word was myself, year 6, so I went and looked it up in the dictionary, and now I'm going to pass that word on to you. So, skim and scan for words that I don't know. I know all of these words. The warts vanished. As she slept, the donkey was summoned from a distant briar. A briar patch, I do know, is a nice sort of like a paddock where the donkey could be eating. But we could check. Could it mean briar? So if we're not sure, he was summoned from a distant ointment made from plants. No, he can't be summoned from an ointment. And he sat back softly in the stable. The sick baby was doused in dittany and woke well and rosy. Was doused in an ointment made from plants and woke well and rosy? Yes, dittany must mean an ointment. And your final question. This tale was written by Beadle the Bard for young wizards and witches. What do you think the moral of the story is? Well, the moral of the story that Beadle the Bard is trying to tell is that wizards and witches should use their power to help non-magical people. Not to fear non-magical people and not to treat them as lesser people. Do you remember he said the sun thought that they were weak, basically, and that they were no good. And Beadle the Bard is saying that young wizards and witches should get on with their non-magical neighbours, and if you can help them, you should use magic to help them. That's the moral of this story. And that's the end of the first tale from Beadle the Bard's Tales from Beadle the Bard. I hope you enjoyed that, and maybe at some point we'll have a chance to look at some more tales from Beadle the Bard. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.